Single stream. Silent stream. Silent stream.
This one.
Good evening, Bhante. Allow me to introduce yourself immediately. Bhante 是 Dr. 甘多达维拉 G.Chandima， 师父是世界佛学特刊编册成员，在加拿大维多利亚大学身为宗教与社会研究成员，在加拿大温哥华哥伦比亚大学为南传佛教导师。Bhante也是高级顾问，在网上弘法团体专于巴利文阅读课程与佛法经文论坛。今天我们讲的主题是早期佛教至现代佛教的路程。Please, Bhante, allow me.
You want to say something in English too?
Yes, say something in English.
English too. Do we need the translation? Okay. Yeah. But better to first introduce me and then. Okay, good. Take this one too. Live mic. Both. Okay. Just take the both. Good evening.
You want to put higher? Yeah.
This one?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not on. Yeah, all right. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Dhamma friends. Shall we pay respect to the Buddha one more time before we can start? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Today I was invited by the Terengganu Buddhist Association through Sister Shirley, called her Sumana, and then Brother Martin suggested if Bhante could talk about the journey of Buddhism. That means we have different types of Buddhism. Here in this center, you are mostly carrying your activities in Hokkien or Mandarin?
Both.
Both Hokkien and Mandarin, mostly about Mahayana Buddhism. Right? So today, I'm going to talk to you about Buddhism, basically from early Buddhism. Early Buddhism means, as you can see here, this is the Buddhism that is based on all the other Buddhist types: Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, Zen Buddhism, alright? So, early Buddhism is different from Theravada. I mean, I'm saying there are elements, but it is different because it is the common teachings that we all, Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, we all based our teachings on. So I think by the end of this talk, you will learn that early Buddhism is our common Buddhism to all of us, Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana, and all that. So the topic for today's talk is the journey of Buddhism, early Buddhism to modern Buddhism. Early Buddhism once again means here the Buddhism that existed from the time of the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, till the time of, I would say, Ashoka, mostly King Ashoka's time. Normally between the second, the history, when you study the history of the different Buddhist, I would say, chronicles, you understand there were different Sanghayana, councils. When the monastics had conflicts about what they believe, they held Sanghayana. Sanghayana means councils. They got together and they chanted what they know. So there were a lot of councils like that. So far we have 6 councils, 6 Buddhist councils. The last one was held in Burma, almost long time ago. So the first council happened after 3 months of the passing away of the Shakyamuni Buddha. The Shakyamuni Buddha, our historical Buddha, passed away long time ago, and after 3 months of his passing away, that first council took place. And then after 100 years of his passing away, the second council took place. After almost 236 years of his passing away, third council took place. Now between the second council and the third council was the time monks started having some different views about the Buddha's Dhamma and Vinaya. So they had different ideas by that time. So they started to make groups. Now, in your life, in your different places, when people have certain views, they want to go as a group. They don't like to mix with others. So these monks thought, now, let me take care of what I know in my own way. You can take care of what you know from the Buddha in your own way. So like this, they had different groups. So then we understand when the groups were made, from that time onwards, the teachings that we know, they cannot be considered early Buddhism. Because then different monks, different monastics added their own version. Now this early Buddhism means that purified, I would say unadulterated version of Buddhism before they became groups. So we are today talking about that early Buddhism and the Buddhism that we experience now. Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana. Primarily about Theravada because I come from a Theravada background. Alright, let's go check it out. You will have lots of opportunities to ask questions as time goes. Alright, so this is how I made the sections which I will be discussing. What is early Buddhism, which is common to all the Buddhisms? That means if you are a Mahayana follower, your Mahayana come from this early Buddhism. If you are a Theravada follower, your Theravada come from this early Buddhism too. So this is the common ground that we all have, the shared teachings. But when you practice, it might have taken the territorial version. Now, when it went to China, Buddhism took the cultural version of China. When it went to Sri Lanka, it took the cultural version of Sri Lanka. But the fundamentals are common. If you go back and trace back, fundamentals are the same. What is early Buddhism? I call it EB. It is easy to then think about. What is Theravada? I just now made a point that Theravada is not early Buddhism. There are early Buddhist teachings in Theravada, but Theravada is a different addendum to early Buddhism. Early Buddhism, now when you say Pali Buddhism is Theravada, no, not necessarily. They have added their own version, like the school. So what is Theravada? Then what are the 18 early Buddhist schools? Now these are the groups that were formed between the second to third councils. From which point we say now you cannot say there is early Buddhism because they created their own arguments, their own teachings. Number 4 is the main phases of Buddhist development. Different things happen. Number 5, timeline, development of Buddhist traditions. Early Buddhism, Theravada, 18 Buddhist schools, Mahayana, Vajrayana, and what are the things we experience today. Different Buddhist movements nowadays. You can see Vipassana, Samatha, right? Finally, 6 Buddhist councils, just to give you an idea. What is early Buddhism? Once again, early Buddhism refers to the teachings of the early Buddhist texts, which are canonical discourses codified during the Buddha's lifetime or immediately thereafter and passed down to us in Pali, Chinese, Tibetan and Sanskrit. Now we believe early Buddhism comes in Chinese too, Tibetan too, Sanskrit too. Then you can see the shared common level nature of early Buddhism. Right? So now when you look at this, you might think I would be rather recognized, identified as a Buddhist, early Buddhist. Not a Theravada Buddhist, not a Mahayana Buddhist, not a Tibetan Buddhist. Or a Zen, I am a Buddhist. Because whatever the teachings I believe, they come in the early Buddhism. So this is the important thing. Contents. Now what do we call early Buddhism? Now from Theravada canon, we call early Buddhism as the first 4 Nikayas. Now there are 4 Nikayas. Probably I might show you later. Those ones. These ones. Yeah, you can see Diga Nikaya, long discourses, Majjhima Nikaya, middle length discourses, and Samyutta Nikaya, connected discourses, Anguttara Nikaya, numerical discourses. You can see over here, right? These 4, Diga, Majjhima, Samyutta, right? So the Kuddaka Nikaya and the rest, they are not normally considered as early Buddhism. There are teachings that were added at a later time, but there are certain places, but mostly they are not early Buddhism. All right. Back. Okay. So the first 4 Nikayas are considered the early Buddhism. Now, if you want to read early Buddhism, you can read these 4 books, but you have to read under certain guidance. Don't buy the book and read because you don't know what to read. They are grouped in a different way. I mean the contents. So if you approach a learned monk or whoever, they will tell you what to read, not everything, what to read out of these books. Because they are grouped, they are codified in different ways. What are the contents of early Buddhism that are common to all of us? Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana. These four teachings are very common to all of us. The Four Noble Truths. What are the Four Noble Truths, Dhamma folks? Can you remember what they are?
Four Noble Truths.
This is the fundamental teaching that we have to understand. The Noble Truth on Dukkha. The Noble Truth on the origin of the Dukkha, cause of the Dukkha.
Yes.
The third one, the Noble Truth on the cessation of the Dukkha. The fourth one, the Noble another thing to think about. As the teachings of the Buddha flow time to time, these things have happened. Alright, the fifth one is very interesting. Inquiry. Now in Buddhism, one very interesting thing is the Buddha tells us, come and see. You have to inquire my teaching. Did the Buddha say you must accept without inquiring? Did he say so? He said always you have to investigate, you have to check, rationalize, discuss. Maybe you don't get the answer. You have to ask from other erudite monks or maybe scholars, maybe practitioners. But if you see in the later text of the canon, it is said that if you question a lot, it is regarded as a spiritual failure. It is your problem, that is what you ask. Dhamma-wise, we don't consider asking questions, inquiring is a problem. And also it is said that it could be an ingratitude to ask questions about Dhamma, especially when you go to the Abhidhamma, slowly navigate. In early Buddhism, no. You can ask so many questions, you have to inquire. You know the famous Pali one, Swakhato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditthiko Vakaliko Ehi Passiko Opanaiko Pacha. Ehi Passiko, come and see. Buddhism is for people, anybody, come and see. Come and see means you may have your own questions. You have to ask them. So that freedom is not seen in later texts. So that is why we have to question that early Buddhism is a very free, very liberalized place, but why that liberalized nature is not in the later text, especially in some Theravada texts. Very interestingly, meditation, the sixth one is meditation. Now we see a lot of meditation methods. What are those methods? Samatha meditation, Vipassana meditation, what else? Light meditation, aura meditation, what else? Body scan meditation, what else? What are the meditation types you have seen in other places and on internet? Body scan also. Looking at the belly also, it is also a meditation. Color meditation, lot of meditation. Most of these meditations are done by the later Theravada schools, especially from Burma. Do you see these meditations in the early Buddhism? No. Because meditation should not be done without the other parts of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right? It is like the Hindu yoga. Hindu yoga, you know, the yoga people. Yoga is not one thing, it is a part of a very big philosophy. So when you do the yoga, it is a philosophy, it is a journey actually. You cannot only do certain yoga and expect the results. According to yoga philosophy, it has to do with a certain other bunch of things. In the same way, meditation should not be done alone. Meditation has to be done with offering dana, being generous, practicing morality. There are a lot of other things. It is a combined practice. But why is this combined practice broken and then cherry pick, taken only one or two, saying that this and that, and then to practice? It has been done by the Theravada school. Early Buddhism does not present different methods of meditation because it says meditation has to be done, but as a part of the whole practice. Then, meditation retreats. Interesting difference. Does the Buddha ask to go for a retreat in the early Buddhism? Buddha goes for an isolation sometimes. Sometimes he says, I cannot talk to people. I want to go to the forest. There was a time that two groups of monks, they had an argument. You know what the argument was on? Some monks said, we have to leave some water in the bucket in the washroom. Interesting. Some monks said it is not necessary. May the monks who go to the washroom will draw the water and then do that activity. Then they did not accept the Buddha's. Buddha said, you don't need to argue over this. This is something like a very simple matter. But they did not listen to the Buddha. So they started arguing each other. Then the Buddha had to leave the place. He had to leave the monastery because of this conflict. Like that, he left the temple. But did he ask people to go for retreats? We don't see something like that. We don't see that in early Buddhism. But Theravada, yes. Especially 18th, 19th, 20th century school. Not even they say to do it, you must go and do it. Right? So that is a different thing that we see in the Theravada school. Alright. So these are certain things that we see in the text. These are a little bit more deep things. I will not elaborate on these small things. This is interesting. Number 13. If anybody wants to see the slides, I can give it to you later. Look at the 13th one. Asubha meditation. What is it? Asubha meditation. Asubha means meditating on the 32 body parts. The body parts. We have head, toe, feet, all these kind of things. Now, in Theravada, there are certain Asubha meditation practices where the teachers talk about looking at the woman as a part of this Asubha meditation. But in early Buddhism, we don't see that. In early Buddhism, what we see is that you have to look at your own body as a reference, right?
And then people say, listen to
That's okay. So, the Buddha said that we need to look at our body and to do the meditation. Not that telling that we have to do it with a certain other different gender. Alright. So you can see that after reading the slides, but I am not going to explain everything. Okay, these are the modern things that we see in the world nowadays. Nikayas. The Sangha has been classified as a part of Nikayas. Nikaya means in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, they have Nikaya, they have group together. But in Buddhism, in the early Buddhism, we don't see that kind of a classification. There is no there is no necessary requirement for monastics to group, right? And hierarchy, there is hierarchy too. This is a new thing. This is also not necessary. State Sangha officials, the government appoints Sangha, right? The government appoints Sangha in some countries, right? This is also not happening in early Buddhism. This is also a thing that we see in today's world. Patriarchy. Patriarchy means the male-dominated state of mind. Now you can see that there is a huge, opposing for Sangha to ordain females in Sri Lanka, even in other countries, because of this gender issue. Right? So this is mainly from Theravada, not from the early Buddhism. In early Buddhism, there's no issue. And devotion versus meditation. Now, this is very interesting. Now, in early Buddhism, we see a lot of teachings about devotion. Go to the temple, listen to a Dhamma talk, respect Buddha Dhamma Sangha. But now, this attitude has been taken differently. Only a certain, a type of meditation is what people need. People might ignore about that devotion part. devotion part is very, very necessary, because if you are not grateful to the teacher, you cannot meditate, you cannot practice the Noble Eightfold Path. Alright, so these are certain changes we see. And there are certain other things that are common to Theravada Mahayana, but they are not given in early Buddhism. Theravada people also do, Mahayana also do, but they are not mentioned in early Buddhism. One thing is paramita. What is it? Paramita means perfections. What is perfection? If you want to become an Arahant, if you want to become a Pacceka Buddha, if you want to become a Buddha, you must practice paramita, perfections. Mahayana also has perfections. Theravada also has perfections. Right? But the early Buddhism says they don't talk about paramita. They simply talk about the practice, but not in the form of paramita. Then, omniscience. Early Buddhism does not say that Buddha is omniscient. Omniscient means Buddha knows everything. Buddha himself told other people, you don't call me as omniscient. Right? But later works, Theravada works, even Mahayana works talk about the Buddha as someone who knows everything. Right? So, these two things are common to Theravada Mahayana, but not mentioned in the early Buddhism. Now you might have some interest to study early Buddhism, because this is interest. That is what I am trying to do. This is Pali Tipitaka. You can see these are the books that are regarded in the Theravada canon by now. This is not our focus today. Just to show you. So the schools that got separated from early time between second and third council, they made their own Tipitaka. Theravada, then Sarvastivada, Sammitiya, Mahasangika, they made their own Tipitaka, their own canon. So when they made their own canon, own books, they cannot be mostly considered. You can say that they are sacred, but there were some versions that were added by these schools. Alright, this is very interesting, the main phases of Buddhist development. Now you can see here, an interesting thing is 500 BCE, that means 500 years before the Jesus Christ's birth, until the first century of the Christian era, was the time we say early Buddhism was mostly developed. But early Buddhism is mostly taken for 200 years. But those five centuries were the time the development of early Buddhism happened. After that, you can see here from 1st century up until the 5th century, 1st to 5th century, Mahayana. 1 to 5, 1st century to the 5th century is the development of the Mahayana. So definitely early Buddhism was prior to all that. And then you can see over here, from the 5th century to 1000 was the time. That means each one has a 500 years gap, 5 centuries gap. 5 centuries for the early Buddhism, 5 centuries for the Mahayana Buddhism, another 5 centuries for the Vajrayana Buddhism, Tibet Buddhism. You can see it over here. 500 before the Jesus Christ birth, 500 after Jesus Christ birth, and then almost 1000 years after the Jesus Christ birth, that is Vajrayana. And you can see the divisions. Early Buddhism helped Theravada, Sarvastivada to rise, and Mahayana led to Zen, Pure Land, Madhyamika, Yogachara to develop, and Vajrayana led Tantric and Vajrayana practices to lead. And their aim of the practice, Theravada people want to become an Arahant, It is a very solo practice, the Mahayana Bodhisattva and then the Siddha. So the geography and all that. So you can see that this is a very concise way of looking at the development in time and then the goals and the rest. This is the same thing that you can see the further traditions. You can see even after those 500, even before those changes happening, you can see certain other things were happening. Now this particular one, the Greco-Buddhism, this means there was a time that the Greek kings came to India, and then they had a lot of connections to India, even to King Ashoka and others. This was the time the nature of the Buddha statue was built up. Now you see the Buddha statues. So Buddha statue was built up under this the Greco-Buddhism time, the Silk Route and all that. So this is a very concise picture of the development of Buddhist traditions. And these are the 6 Buddhist concepts. Alright, I think I covered certain important aspects of early Buddhism and Theravada. Now you should understand that early Buddhism is not Theravada. Theravada is a school. So the common Buddhism is early Buddhism. You also call as being a Mahayana that early Buddhism is your roots. Theravada is also claim early Buddhism is their root. But sometimes people who don't know this difference take early Buddhism and Theravada as one, which is not correct. Alright, any questions?
Okay, let me just.
You can summarize, huh?
It's quite hard to summarize, and 真的要翻译是不简单的。我就讲一下，我就Bhante forgive me if I've you know.
It's okay.
如果我讲错的话，你们就纠正我吧。真的不简单。师父说，早期的佛教是在耶稣出世前的500年就产生了。这个南传佛教是在500年后才产生南传佛教，后来藏传佛教在500年后又产生了。那么师父也讲到，在佛陀涅槃的时候，佛陀说我不是神通的，我不是什么都懂的。所谓的神通，佛陀的神通，佛陀什么都懂，是一直到南传的时候这个神通才出现，对吗？呀，是。然后师父也讲到，禅定、禅坐，这个 meditation， 在早期的佛教还是没有那么盛行。这个所谓的禅定也是到南传的时候才开始出来的，而且有很多种的这个坐禅的方式。师父也讲到太多的这个，因为师父是博士嘛，他是学者啊，他是研究佛教的，所以很多那些词都是很让学生们知道，我们这些就是要靠一个 layman 的，就是普通人的语文来讲。Brother Luak, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah. So, 师父也讲到这个，以前早期的佛教都是归于我们是到道场去，我们是到去寺庙去这个做达玛学法之类的。那么新时代的佛教就好像有点改变了，呀，所以师父也讲到我们北传、南传、藏传都不属于早期的佛教，都不属于早期。这些南传呢，是不是说Terengganu南传是一个学校，一个学校来的？然后它不是一个，就是一个主流的一个学校。 那师父呢是专于南传的这个主流，所以师父大概也讲了一些多数于早期的佛教的一些名字，太过还有你们看到那个叫做阿毗达玛，达玛是佛法，阿毗达玛是更加深的佛法 ，greater than Dhamma， 那个是早期的佛教。阿毗达玛 is greater than Dhamma, and that exists because of Theravada。所以因为有南传，就有这个所谓的阿毗达玛，就是南传，因为南传是说本来我们学佛叫达玛嘛，佛法是达玛，但是以这个南传出现之后，这个阿毗达玛又出现了，就说比佛法还要更加深，所以真的大家学佛是不容易了。你看这么深，还有是会讲到，当然了 Four Noble Truth 那个四叫什么？四圣谛啊，四圣谛对，还有呀，所以这些都是早期佛教的根基啊，根基当然师父也讲到，我们要学那个四圣谛的话，他讲书可以看，但是你一定要请教我们的这个出家人，书写的他就不要乱读啊，读了要问一些问题呀。小弟也在读 Four Noble Truths 英文的啦，所以我昨天在那个学生面前说，我们很荣幸、很幸运、很感恩，因为我们可以读华文、英文跟中文。所以我读这个 Four Noble Truths， 刚才师父也讲到那几个，就提醒了好多。所以我们真的幸运可以用2个语文来了解这个佛法。我大概这样讲真的压力很大。I allow them。你们有问题的话可以问我，可以翻译。
Questions? Huh?
Yeah.
Q&A.
Yeah.
You can give the mic to
brother. Any question? Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Take the mic.
Sometimes we always have problem.
This mic too.
Okay, this is okay.
Both mics.
I want to ask Bhante. Sometimes halfway we facing problem. We always go back to the basic. This 4, isn't it? Yeah, this 4.
Sometimes when we are facing problems, we go back to the Four Noble Truths.
Yeah, the 4 basic things.
Yeah.
These 4 basic things.
They are not just basics. They are the deepest.
Sometimes we feel confused with maybe like paradox. Paradox. Sometimes
Paradoxes.
Paradoxes.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately we stop there and go back to the basic. These 4 basic things to recall us back.
Okay. So our painful experiences, when painful experiences arise in our life, we are messed up. So we go to these teachings.
Yeah.
So just because we go to these teachings, we might not be able to understand them properly. That is why we need
better than we confuse. Still confusing.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Just because we are confused, we might go. But we should be able to understand them clearly in our way.
Yeah.
So we need certain guidance from someone who knows, like a monk, like that. But that is the point of reference where we have to go when we are in struggle. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. All our painful experiences can be related to these Four Noble Truths. All the issues we have, our family problems, other problems, life problems, they all can be related to this teaching, Four Noble Truths. But today I told you something new.
It means things we facing is against this 4 is
Against this,
against this 4 basic things is absolutely
things we are facing are against these 4?
Yeah.
How?
Sometimes we practice or
Can you give us an example?
We're facing our lifetime of facing something we cannot solve it.
No,
Or-
they
or-
are not against these four. We are messed up because we don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
these
yeah,
four.
messed up.
Because we don't know these four, then we think that they are against. So the more
I
we
mean, go back to
understand,
the basic to recall us back what is the true to make us more clear.
yeah. So my suggestion to you is that the more we understand these Four Noble Truths,
Yeah.
the lesser we have the problems. Easy. So when we more understand the nature of these Four Noble Truths, the problems that come to us will be lesser because we look at it differently.
Yeah.
We can solve them easily.
Yeah.
That is
fine.
the way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You want to translate? Question and answer. His question and my answer.
Yes，我们这位师兄，你说我们说会 confuse 混乱，会在生活上的烦恼种种，所以师兄是说要倒回去这个是圣地的所谓的教导，所以是圣地 the Four Noble Truth just say a few， 就说我们的 suffering， 我们的痛苦，他也讲到我们的 root of suffering in the Four Noble Truth， 是我们的痛苦的来源，所以从那边就是不是说从那边就可以开导我们的这个所谓的混淆、混乱跟烦恼。所以大家，我真的鼓励大家看这个 Four Noble Truth， 非常好一本书啊，是圣地，就是他讲到烦恼痛苦的来源，它的 host， 它的 root cause， 非常好一本书呀。这个是如果可以读英文都最好，华文也不错。OK， 还有吗
That's a very good question.
？Yes。呀，真的非常感谢你们来听，但是也不好意思，因为我们这是很多的这个佛学的那个字眼是比较深了一点呀，真的呀，我刚才他一边讲，我一直在听，有时听到乱去了，yeah， so I was
Maybe they may have questions in Mandarin, so you can take the question and translate for me.
yes, yeah.
In
你们有
Mandarin you can ask.
华语的问题都可以
You
，yeah，
can say to them. Anybody.
understand, huh? Good. Yeah.
Ask in Mandarin or Hokkien, he will translate for me.
Yeah.
And my answers he will translate back to you.
Yeah, that is quite a pleasure, Bhante. Yeah, 大家要问问题吗？趁机呀。为什么我们当初跟Bhante在讨论到底要讲什么课题的时候，我们当时我还在吉隆坡，他还在斯里兰卡，就是用 WhatsApp 来传来传去。他也提到说，会长，如果我讲这个课题，你们是否听得懂吗？呀，是真的听不懂，也不是听不懂，他的字眼太深了，有时候，因为他又是博士嘛，他是做研究的，所以很明显的、很当然的，他是用这些的方式来为我们弘法，跟我们北传的就不大一样了。所以呀，是吗？跟我们北传的弘法的老师不一样，这个就比较 technical 了，比较技术性的。brother， 也很难得咯，所以这个有机会Bhante来跟我们指挥，跟我们分享这个早期的佛教 early Buddhism 呀，因为我们有提到在 WhatsApp 的时候，就是说佛教的演变从早期一直演变。刚才师父也讲到，Bhante也讲到，僧团在佛陀涅槃的时候。过了不到好几年，僧团就出现还分组、分 group 了，所以这些都是佛教的，从以前到现在的这个路程呀。所以他也讲Bhante也讲到，佛教到中国它叫做 China Culture of Buddhism， 就中国的文化的佛教。去到去到斯里兰卡，印度又是印度的文化的佛教，去了泰国有泰国文化的佛教，这个是会讲到的，这是以前了，所以从那边就产生了现在所谓的三个了，北传、南传跟藏传，各位还有问题要问吗？叶小姐，
Shirley.
Shirley? Yeah?
You're the most.
I think I have a question. If we understand that the early Buddhism is we learn through the Pali, then it only have the sound, then have no words. Then it will be our problem to learn about the early Buddhism if all we learn now we don't really understand about the Pali. Then all the Dharma is translated into language, then will language be a barrier for us to learn about early Buddhism? 就是我们早期的佛教就是用巴利文嘛，然后巴利文它没有文字，然后只有声音嘛，所以我们现在学我们不知道巴利文的意思，然后只能从翻译这样子学过来，所以我们这个语言会不会成为我们来学习早期佛教的一个障碍
Okay, it was clear to me. So now she was asking, in order even to understand early Buddhism from Theravada, do we need to learn some Pali? That might be a little tedious activity because you might not be able to learn Pali that much because it's a new language. That is why you should consult a good teacher will tell you what to read, what not to read. Like today you learn for the first time Theravada and early Buddhism, they are two different ones. But there are certain similarities also. So, when you work with a teacher to understand Dhamma, the teacher will tell you what to read, what not to read. You understand Pali terms. Otherwise, I don't recommend to start learning Pali as a language because it's a very tedious thing, right? So I think better to approach a teacher who can tell you, because why you want to learn Pali? Because you think there are a lot of things you don't know. Then when you meet the right teacher, then you learn most of the things. It makes your time short in that learning. Make sense? So better to approach a teacher who has a good understanding of Pali. So the problem with understanding certain Pali words will be not a problem to all of you at that point. The teacher will explain to you in easy language. My worry was, if you don't approach the right teacher, you go learn Pali. That will be where to read, what to read. Because Pali also has, one Pali word has 9-10 meanings. Now one example, evam mesutang ekang samyam. Now recently many devotees Pali class. Just now I finished online share class. Only 40-50 people come to that class every Thursday. Students ask me, Bhante, I bought a Pali dictionary, English. I said there are. How Pali has a lot of meanings. One word has 10-15 meanings. So it is okay to buy certain things, better to buy a book. But it's good to deal with the teacher, be with the teacher, so teacher will tell you the proper translation. So that is what I can suggest for learning Buddhism. So better not just like it is a rigorous path that you might waste your time. Then whenever you finish learning the language, you will be very old. You cannot learn the Dhamma at that time. The whole years you have been spending for Pali. Because Dhamma has when you are young, not you getting old. When you have no choice. When you are young teacher, so learn lots of learn very important in that teacher. So you learn then you learn the proper Pali at that point with that teacher. You practice at the same, wasting your time. Suggest.
啊，这师傅是说，我们一定要一个导师来教我们。如果我们花很多时间去学巴利文，反而忽略了我们要学佛的、学法的，浪费了时间。也说，主要是学巴利文是，你只需要懂，要不要太精巴利文，对吗？而且that just such thing as a part to English.
Yeah. Now there are a lot of dictionaries in Pali to English. That means one Buddha and
Okay.
There are some devoted book that is not going to work because every Pali word has word from the suttas. Those words have particular meaning. You can
一个巴利文，可能经里面最好是每一个巴利文都有它各自的意思呀，所以我们不要轻着去买这点，也佛要感恩，我们会看了一些巴利文的字，它也有巴利文有中文。我可以，我们什么意思？我说你不是念华文，我华啊，念华来的学佛呀。OK， because there's always Mandarin, English. We just pronunciation. Even though we don't know the meaning, and read. I mean, aura, yeah.
If Pali
if in the 这样好。